Hi, Tyron. Hi, Imran.
Hey, Rich.
Hello.
Okay, this is our first interaction,
Yes.
and with Imran, I had an amazing, experience last time. I think it was important at that point of time for people to understand what exactly is happening. Now, I'm not going to be nice here. I'm going to ask you questions, very straightforward questions, and I'm asking you these questions on behalf of all the investors and buyers who are waiting for answers.
Yes.
They don't want the sugar-coated, flowery language, everything is all right kind of narrative. Okay, so I'll start with you, of course, because this is the first interaction. And first question, straightforward question.
Yeah.
What changed in the market in the past 30 days?
I think there are some obvious changes with regards to the uncertainty that has been put through the market. So you'd have to have your head buried in the sand if you didn't think that what is going on is going to have some short-term implications. So what we've seen is there has been buyers who've said, is my money safe? Are my investments safe? Is it still a good place to invest? These questions are natural things that are going to come up. I've invested myself heavily in different parts of the UAE and will continue to do so. But from a short-term perspective, there has been some people, I mean, I'm from the UK originally, that's where we grew the business. Some people have been absolutely fine, some people have not, and they've said, okay, I'm going to wait, I'm going to potentially withdraw from certain sales. But that is always going to be a short-term impact on something that creates uncertainty like the crisis that's going on, or should I say uncertainty in the Middle East.
Okay, so what is your direct message to people, who are still looking to explore opportunities? Like you said, whenever there is an issue, any kind of issue in the market, whether it's a geopolitical, or any other issue, there are a lot of new opportunities that come up, which a lot of people don't really realize. So, what is your direct advice to those people who are still confused? I just want to take away that confusion from their minds, so that they get more clarity going forward.
So, in answer to your question, my direct message to any investors, buyers, or people who are maybe sitting on the fence at the moment is just think long term. The UAE, Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, Abu Dhabi, they do not have short term plans. They have long term plans built by absolute excellency. And it's really, really deep rooted. When you actually look at where the Emirates are going to be in the next kind of 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the plans are just absolutely monumental. And that is what people should be investing in. Of course, what is happening now is going to give you some uncertainty. But every smart investor knows that you shouldn't follow the crowd. If you get mainstream media that are giving you false narratives to try and scare you into a certain decision, you should understand that there is really an agenda behind why they're doing that. If you've got a country like where I'm from in the UK, they've seen a mass migration, the highest migration of millionaires. That at one point there was a millionaire leaving the UK every 45 minutes. So when you think about that from a kind of implication on their economy, of course they've got an agenda to start saying Dubai's falling, the UAE's falling, because they want all of those people back. They're not willing to lower the taxes. They're not willing to make it safer. They're not willing to make the economy better. They're not willing to fix the potholes in the road. But they are willing to say the UAE's got problems. So what I'm getting at is that you've got to understand from a short-term agenda, that's why they're putting out that narrative. If you're a smart investor, you're going to speak to people who are skilled in the market. The days where you can just take advice from any real estate agent that you meet in the airport or meet at the taxi rank, unfortunately, those days have gone. You need an expert advising you who's going to tell you, first of all, where the best places are to invest, where the long-term money is investing, and of course, how you're going to get a return on your money. Because we're talking about investing here. I can easily tell you, go and buy that building, go and buy that building. This looks nice. You've got a jacuzzi on your balcony or whatever it might be. But the reality is, most of them have those features. Where's your money actually going to return? And that's where you need an expert in this market to actually advise you on your money.
Amazing. So, Imran, okay, let me ask you this. I've been actually waiting to ask you this because for the past few days you've been talking about cracking at least one deal, at least one transaction every day. So if I say that's just a marketing gimmick, would you agree?
No. You see, the good thing is that across my companies, and one of the companies is actually a marketing company, right? We never did gimmicks. And from a messaging perspective, Binesh, across the group companies, our messaging has never changed. Our messaging was never about the short term. Our messaging was never about speculation. Our messaging was always about, hey, I love my country where I'm from, but I'm committed to this market where I operate, right? I was born in a land, but I have earned in this land, right? And our messaging was consistent across all group companies, here or anywhere else. And I think to Tyron's point, right, you're operating in a market that has a 2072 plan. You're operating in a market that has, okay, short-term 2040 plan, shorter-term 2033 agenda. You're not talking to a market which is 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. That's not how the leadership looks at this market. And what's happened is, it always starts at the top and cascades down. So when the leadership is like that, of course, the business leadership will be similar, right? Our teams will be similar. We will communicate the same to our investors. Do people make money in the short term here? Absolutely. That's because the growth is ginormous, right? But at the same time, there are players who know how the long run operates, right? And they stay invested for the long term, right? Today, in today's market, the reason why I say a deal a day is critical because, Tyrone and I were just having a chat. When the uncertainty started, Binesh, and I had a chat with you right in the beginning, and I said that when times are uncertain, the only thing that matters is clarity. Someone who can give you clarity and certainty, we don't have a crystal ball, but if we can give you clarity on the fact that, hey, this is the new normal. And again, we were having a chat. Across all my group companies, we've recalibrated to this being the new normal. And we're going to operate like this for the next 2 months, for the next 12 months, and that's all right, right? But the fact is, when someone gives you clarity, that's when you know how to operate in this market. Initially, the clarity we had was forget velocity, forget volume. Across group companies, let's only focus on transactions, baseline transactions, commitment to cash, right? Now, initially in the first 2-3 weeks, I think we were all blessed, including Tyrone. I know for a fact that we still had our buyers who had committed. For us, our clients who had committed, our channel partners who had committed, who came through with their commitments in the first 2 to 3 weeks of this uncertain period, right? Did we have loss of clients? 100%. Did we have deferred payment requests? 100%. Were we asked to be flexible? 100%. But so did our development partners. They gave us the flexibility to move it forward. Our clients at Pixel allowed us the flexibility to survive through this period well, right? For the fund, the same thing, right? So again, because we are in an ecosystem that believes in the long term, everyone is willing to be flexible in the short term to live longer and better in the long term, right? So initially, first 3 weeks, it was all about transactions. Now what started happening, and this was kind of a very pleasant surprise to me, over the last 3 to 4 days, we've had a deal a day in both my very active companies, InvestP and Pixel, and these are all brand new deals, right? A brand new deal a day means the momentum, which was limited to transaction, is now translating to volume and will translate to velocity, right? So definitely there is absolutely no gimmick. A gimmick would have been sold out on day one. That's a gimmick in today's time, right? But a deal a day is a fact. And if there are 200 companies like ours that are doing a deal a day, Dubai is back on the map. Dubai has clarity. The investor has clarity about this market. And I'm talking not just Dubai, but UAE. The investor has clarity. The channel partners have clarity. Businesses like ours have clarity. The developers have clarity. And that's what matters. Today, the SMS we get, we know it's the new normal. And as a market, we have learned to operate in that normalcy.
So what was the discount that you offered these new buyers?
So very, very interesting. We showed flexibility on a number of things, right? Today, every investor around the world wants to hold on to cash, right? It's because the crisis is not limited to the Middle East. It's impacting the world, right? So everyone's trying to hold on to cash, right? So if they are giving cash out, they of course expect flexibility. Now that flexibility, discount is a very pejorative term. It's a very negative term, right? We prefer deal making, right? So when investors come in, we put them with the channel partners across the table with the developer. And investors come in with different requirements, right? Someone might come in with, oh, I want flexibility on payment plan. You know what? If your payment plan was 50-50, can you give me 30-70 right now? So my cash outlay in times of uncertainty is limited. Right? See, the developer's already logged in because the norms of the UAE mandate money to be in the escrow, mandate the money to be there to build the building, right? The regulatory compliance, all of this is very, very tight in the interest of the investor. So the investor knows I'm protected. The developer knows I'm committed, right? So a 50-50 payment plan can be made flexible to a 30-70 payment plan. Developers are looking at their profitability. You have to understand cash flow is king. If I have cash flow, I will be profitable. If I have no cash flow, I will not have a P&L, right? So right now, there is flexibility on cash. Cash deals that come in, you can see from the largest developers in the UAE, who have like 16,000 units coming up, all the way down to someone who has 60 units coming up, they are showing flexibility on cash flow. So if I say I'm going to pay 50% upfront, of course I get a better deal structure than someone who says I'm going to give you 10% upfront. Right? So I would say different deals are being structured. There is no template. There is no one size fits all. This is not a discounted market. This is a deal-based market. One. The second thing is product is becoming very important because there's selective buying happening. Now, I can't just tell someone on the phone, hey, this is great, take it. I have to explain about the product. I have to explain about the long-term value in the product. I have to explain about the appreciation, the ROI, as he's saying, the IRR, because cash is important. Right? So a lot of financial metrics are being looked at and the product becomes very important. It's not just the story that will sell, but the product that will sell. So I think it's a combination of multiple factors, and most importantly, who is it across the phone or across the computer or across the table who is talking to you about this product? And hence I believe the role of channel partners today, like Tyrone and his team, is more important than ever, right? And that's on the back of that, we built one of our companies, right? Because we believe that the amount of information, knowledge, and transparency they can communicate with to their investors is what's going to change the game today. It is what is bringing Dubai back on the map, on the investors' map.
Okay. Now, Tyrone, I've been noticing this particular thing, on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, there are a lot of ads about relocating and investing in different countries. This happened all of a sudden. See, there has been a narrative set by the Western media, a lot of lies, with only a little bit of truth about what's happening here in Dubai or the UAE. And then followed by this series of ads, which is very difficult to ignore because it just hits you, after every reel. Okay, Portugal, this country, that country, Germany, come to Italy. So this has been happening and it's still going on, right? So as if an investor comes to you right now, someone who's invested heavily in Dubai so far and, has been pretty happy with the returns or, the growth. And such an investor comes to you as of today and says, okay, now what I want to do is I want to focus on the other countries, not Dubai. So what is the interaction going to be? Like, what are you going to tell them?
I think my goal with regards to, and us as a company with regards to advising investors, is never to not have any diversification in your investment portfolio. I've got many investors who've invested in the UK, they've invested in, I've got people who own property in America, they own in Marbella, they own in Portugal, they own in all these different places. I think the main thing is that if an investor is analysing whether they should put their money into an area, it has to stack up. And when something doesn't stack up, i.e. if you've got a property or an off-plan property that's been offered to you in an area in Europe, and you can see from the statistics that it's declined by like 5%, 10% a year for the last 5 years, it doesn't matter how good the payment plan is or what they're offering, it's a bad investment, you're going to lose money. So what you've got is progressive increases in different parts of the UAE which stand the data test. They stand the data test. Even areas like Al Marjan Island, Ras Al Khaimah, where there isn't actually much historical data, because a concept of a casino island is a completely new concept. But that's what excited me about it and what made me buy into it. Because for me, I think to myself, I'll take an apartment that's going to be in the next Las Vegas, you know. But for me, that's where I get excited. I get excited by the unknown and by a big infrastructure. Other people are a little bit more diplomatic with how they go about their investments. They need a very solid rental yield. For example, if you go and buy in a European city and you're guaranteed a 6%, 7% rental yield, that's probably quite a good rental yield for Europe. But then if you start taking into account the tax implications of that country, you start taking into account the fact that it's going to cost you a lot more maintenance, it's going to cost you X amount on your rental commission you've got to pay the agent, suddenly the 7% turns into 3% very quickly, and it's not a good investment. So it's got to stand the data test. All the investments that we effectively put in front of people who are potentially investing, they have to follow two areas. The first is going to be the infrastructure test. So for example, it's very easy to say to someone, buy this apartment block, it's nice, it's new, etc., etc. What has that emirate put into the infrastructure for its growth? And when you start at that level and then you work up to the property that you're actually selling, usually what it will do is it will give you a pretty good guideline of where a property increase in value is going to come from. For example, I used Al Marjan Island. There's going to be the world's largest casino there. There's going to be some of the largest food and beverage, restaurant, bars, nightclubs, that type of thing, brands, emerging there. It's on a man-made island, a quarter of the size of the Palm. It's never been done before, and it's now going to have a VVIP airport terminal built in. It's going to have all these things that have just never been done before on a man-made island. And I'm thinking to myself, that sounds very interesting. Let me start looking into the properties there. Right? If I then go to another area where I know that, okay, let's take, for example, JBC. It's very, very established. You're always going to have tenants. You're always going to have rentals. Your capital appreciation is not going to be on the level of an Al Marjan Island, but some investors get a bit nervous about that. So what they'd rather do is say, right, it's continuously rented out for the last 7-8 years, always getting 5%, 10% rental yield. It's a safe investment. That's where my money's coming in. I'll invest there. And that's also a solid investment. So it's about, the good thing is that different parts of the UAE will tick different boxes. And for me, that's the critical thing. I don't compare it to, you shouldn't buy in Europe, you should only buy in UAE. I say, let's get the facts, the figures, the data out on the paper, and let's see which one stands the test. And if you're telling me something is better as an investment and can show you the evidence, I'm not going to tell you not to buy it. Go and buy it. But also have a look at this. Do you see what I'm saying?
This particular point that I mentioned about the way the investors think, in a situation like this, right? So they can be panic, they can be paranoid about what's going to happen, because like you mentioned, you have to be certain about uncertainties, or in a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty. It's easier said than done. Especially when you've put a lot of money into one market, or you've been planning to do that, then all of a sudden something just happens, which nobody expected. So what do you think, based on your interaction, over the past 30 days? I'm sure you've been talking to a lot of your buyers, and they must be messaging you, calling you, just trying to understand what's happening. So based on your interaction with all these guys, with the investors and buyers, what is the general feeling about it? I mean, are they just waiting for this thing, to officially come to an end, then continue, or they are like, okay, now I'm not sure?
Yeah, so there's two types of buyers that are hovering around in the market at the moment. You're going to have some people, by the way, that are just going to exit. Like they're not really that knowledgeable on where and what's going to happen. They've made what I would call knee-jerk decisions. They've looked at a video or a newspaper report from the Daily Mail in the UK where someone's got off a plane and is blubbering like an idiot, and you think to yourself, what is this person talking about? But then they react to that and they go, right? But they're not really intelligent investors. These are what I would call kind of the lowest common denominator of person you can affect. They get affected by everything. Whatever they read in the newspaper, it's true. That's what they believe, right? And they're very easy people to target. The intelligent investors are long-term investors. So they see where it's going to be in kind of 4 or 5 years' time. But what they will do is they'll just sit tight, they won't care. There'll be certain people who own luxury villas that have probably gone down a little bit in value at the current market rate, but they know in 5 years it'll have gone back up, if not further up. And so they're not worried at all. You get the people who are experienced in investing, they're investing in the long term, they're not flinching. Then you get the opportunistic investors. So these are people that probably were on the fence a little bit, and they were thinking, shall I invest, shan't I invest? And then the project that they were interested in, or the area that they were interested in, suddenly the developer, to cater for certain buyers' needs, I know you mentioned about it being a deal by deal kind of basis, they may be able to get now a better payment plan, they may be able to get a slightly better price or something in the middle. Those investors are solidly in the market and are making moves, and they are very intelligent for doing that. For me, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm advising our investors to be doing. And of course, people who are just looking at overall bulk deals, large purchases, they need to be getting a good deal off people. And I think it's about everyone meeting in the middle somewhere. That's what it is. I think developers understand they've got to change their tact slightly, and also investors can turn the screws a little bit in getting a better deal.
Got it. And Imran, one thing that kind of influences the investors' confidence in the market, especially in a situation like this, I don't think anybody has really spoken about it, at least in the last 30 days. I'm talking about from a developer's point of view, is the delivery, of projects that have been announced, that have been sold out over the past few months. And we are talking about 2017, 2018, a lot of delivery dates have been announced. But I've not seen any developer really coming out and giving a reassurance to their buyers and investors, saying, see, whatever happens in the market, we're going to go ahead and we'll meet the schedule, or we'll meet the deadlines, or whatever delivery date promised to you. So what's happening on that front? Because you are dealing with a lot of developers who've launched a lot of projects in the past few months.
So Binesh, very, very good question. But I must pull up our marketing team, because they've not been sending you the CEO letters that we've been sending out. So
see, it's for the public.
I'm fairly certain Tyrone's team got it, right? So the first thing, Binesh, we did, so Pixel actively works every year with about 150 to 160 developers, right? InvestP has about, at any given point of time, between 15 to 20 developers we work with. The first thing we did is that we went out to all our developers and we said, is everything on track? And I kid you not, everyone, with the exception of no one, said yes, we are on track. The second thing we did is we told them, send letters and let that letter come directly from the CEO or the owner, and let that letter go to every channel partner and investor saying, hey, we are here, we are steady, we are stable, we are developing, and we are going to be on time, right? Of course, every SPA has a caveat in terms of, certain delays here and there. And, when imports get disturbed, when cost of construction goes up, material gets choked, there would be certain delays that have to be factored in, but they are marginal, right? However, every developer, again, sent these CEO letters out. In addition, developers are now doing communication out to the market saying construction progress is happening, excavation is done, shoring piling is done, first slab up, second slab up, right? This communication, now developers in the market, and we, between Pixel and InvestP, are encouraging developers to push this communication out, because just like you, people are unaware of it. The moment people know that the developer is committed, that the cash from the developer side is still flowing into the system, that the building is coming up on time and full, their confidence will compound, right? So this is something that we are advising everyone across the board, and we are requesting channel partners also to take this message forward to their investors, in case we've missed out certain investors for some of our developers who've started communicating. I think this is a very, very strong message that's going out. And I can vouch for about the 170 developers that we work with across our companies, that they are definitely on track, and they're doing their best to make sure all the milestones are hit, right? And I also want to address something else, Vinesh, that you asked about, multiple developers from different countries and investors investing across countries. To Tyrone's point, investors who come to Dubai, of course, there are two kinds, right? One who call this home and are end user investors. So they, of course, have the bulk of their wallet share of real estate investment in Dubai. Maybe they'll have a little bit back home in whatever country they come from, and they may or may not want to diversify because this country gives such good return on investment that they might not want to diversify. And then there's a second lot, which is a pure investor play, right? So they have properties across the world. They have a heavy real estate portfolio, and Dubai is one of those, or UAE is one of those, pieces that kind of fits in their portfolio. And I would say over the last 3, 4 years, 5 years, that portfolio would have grown, right, substantially, and therefore the UAE piece of that portfolio would be heavier than the rest of the world, right? Now, what started happening, what we've seen across companies, and again, I was talking to Tyrone this morning about it, is that we've got developers from Europe, we've got developers from India, who are now coming to us saying, hey, you know what? We know that the UAE market has deep liquidity, which has accrued over the last 5 years, right? So why don't you also push our developments to your channel partner network, market our developments across your universe, and let some investments come to us, right? So of course, we are engaging with different developers around the world. And anyway, the platform was built to kind of create a network, right? So channel partners continue to sell, continue to earn, investors continue to buy, et cetera, et cetera. However, the most intelligent of the lot are the channel partners and the investors who accept that crisis breeds opportunity. And the prices and the deals that we just spoke about that are happening now in this market are unlike ever before, right? I was looking at the data point of a Fairways villa in Dubai Hills, right? That villa around now was priced at 34 million. That villa was originally sold in 2015 for 4.4 million. In 2016, the gentleman resold it for 4.4 million. Okay, didn't make any profit, any loss. This guy held on to it till 2020, and in 2020, someone bought it for 2.6 million. And that gentleman sold it just at the beginning of the crisis for 34 million.
There you go.
So the 2.6 million time is back. Intelligent investors who have had liquidity, and liquidity is relative. For me, 200,000 might be liquid. For him, 2 million might be liquid. For you, 20 million might be liquid, right? It depends on how much of that cash am I willing to push into the market today. But the returns on that investment you'll get, the one that you invest today, are going to be exponential. So the intelligent investor who's sitting on cash is going to treat it like gold today and will get much higher yield than gold on that cash.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the point to make, right? So while yes, all these international developers will come in, all these international investors will come in, channel partners will come in, but the intelligent ones will be the ones who will, in a very cold-blooded way, look at just operating their money and how their money works for them. And actually, there's no better time than now to invest in this market.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. So, Tyrone, according to you, based on your experience, where or which communities should an intelligent investor should focus on?
I think that's a very, very broad question, but
Top five.
I'll do my very best. I'll do my very
Yeah, he's putting you on the spot.
to get the map of the UAE behind me. So I mentioned earlier, we're a massive advocate. I think we're in the top 3 agencies that have sold in Ras Al Khaimah, Al Marjan Island. The reason being is the concept and the infrastructure for me is just it's absolutely mind blowing. So that for me is one area that every investor should be looking at. You've got almost boutique branded developments on a man-made island, a quarter the size of the Palm, world's largest casino going in. It's going to be absolutely unbelievable. I'm on my 8th property that I bought there, so I advocate that massively. I would say you cannot go wrong in areas of Dubai land where there is townhouses being built. The supply and demand factor for townhouses and villas is still always going to be a massive imbalance. There are more people that want to buy them than there are villas and townhouses being built. So for me, positioning a good purchase in that area is always going to be a sound investment. And then I think areas like Dubai Islands are going to be very, very interesting. I think if you're looking at a limitation of seafront apartments. They're where the real value is. If you look historically at the data, all seafront apartments have always gone up significantly in value. You can always look at areas like Emaar Beachfront, for example. I think people were flipping them 3 or 4 times during construction just because the prices were going up so quickly, and that is because it's a slam dunk seafront apartment. So if you're buying those type of apartments, Maritime City is another one, you're going to be getting good capital appreciation in those areas. And then I think I live kind of towards this area of I live in downtown myself anyway. I bought one in downtown recently. I always think downtown for me it's one of those areas, it's a little bit like buying in central London or buying in New York or something like this. I just feel like it's the original. You've got Dubai Mall, you've got the Burj Khalifa. I don't think it's ever going to get boring buying an apartment and having Burj Khalifa views. I just think it's going to be something that's always going to be quite cool to have. And even if the capital appreciation is going to be steady, I think that if you look at it from a kind of year-round short-let market or rental market, you're always going to get someone, even in the height of summer when the temperature's higher, someone's still going to go and rent an apartment off you right next to the mall. So I feel like downtown is always going to be a pretty solid area to be putting your money in long term. Oh, and Abu Dhabi. I love Abu Dhabi. I just think we've been selling quite a few recently there. The reason is it's just an unbelievable opportunity for families. Like for me, I can't imagine. I haven't got any children, but hopefully I will have soon. And God willing, inshallah.
Sure.
And I think to myself, the prospect for a family of having like a villa or a townhouse, and you can literally go to Disney World in 2030 is going to be absolutely unbelievable, because most people have to go and fly to like Orlando, Florida to go and do that. So the plans for Abu Dhabi to effectively cater for families moving over is very exciting. So I could probably go on, to be honest. So the problem, and I'd say it not a problem in a bad way. The problem is if you kind of tap into one area, you go down this like rabbit hole of like what they're putting into that area, and then you go, oh God, I should invest there. And then you go and look at another one, and you go, yeah, but this has got that, and it's doing this, and you go, oh, but that there's so many good ones. It's like, for me, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here, because it is so exciting. And what actually excites me the most about what the government have done here is that they haven't even scratched the surface yet. People think Dubai is like this. I've heard crazy media outlets saying like it's a bubble, this, that, and the other. I'm thinking, if you look at the plans, they're like 10%, 15%, 20% in.
Yeah.
There's so much more to come, and that's where I know it's going to be such a huge play for any investors. So I know you asked me to specify, and I've struggled a lot. And it's because each area has just got so many different prospects. But yeah, Dubai Land, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, Al Marjan Island and surrounding areas, and then original areas like downtown are good for solid investments. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So the last question for you. So now there is there is a section of people, a particular set of people who believe that immediately after this is officially over, the uncertainty period, there's going to be a recession, which is far more dangerous, or which is far more harmful for the market than this period of time. So what is your take on that?
You like asking difficult questions. So, look, Binesh, real estate principally can be looked at in 2 ways, right? Either for investment purposes or for living purposes, right? Let's talk about the investment part of it, right? When you talk about real estate investment, you look at other investment opportunities that any investor has. So just like real estate, the other huge opportunity that people have is equities, right? The stock market. I'm going there to answer your question. The way the stock markets work is that they factor future sentiment in today, right? So people say that during war is the best time to invest because it's already factored the upcoming problems in the economies today, right? So if there is a fear of recession, the stock market would factor in today. That's the reason why the S&P is down almost 8%. You see all the Mag 7, they're all down. Like there's massive pandemonium in stock markets around the world. The Indian stock market is at its lowest for like 4-5 years, right? DFM has experienced it as well because it kind of factors in the future remorse today. Real estate is slightly different. Real estate operates in real time because the money flow is staggered. Right? Stock market equity I can buy today, trade, right? But real estate is a slightly longer buying cycle. So the money moves from one pocket, moves into real estate. The regulatory environment takes time for the transaction to happen, and then the transaction to sell. Real estate is more illiquid, of course, than equities. So it takes a little longer to get out of one element to the other or one unit to the other. So real estate is a little more staggered, and real estate is more real time than future focused, right? Even though in real estate, just like equity, they say buy the rumor, sell the story, but it's a little staggered. So today, what you're seeing in real estate is not factoring in the future downward trend, if any. For a fact, and this is just my opinion, for a fact, it's going to get worse before it becomes better, right? Because what happens is when the chaos ends and when the dust settles, that's when you know how much cleaning up you need to do, right? So the market will take stock of that as well. And the market at that time will realize how much cleanup it has to do. The beauty, Binesh, which is very unexpected, is that this market, because of the leadership, behaves a little differently than other markets. You would have expected the tax rate cuts to happen after this was over. But this has already been infused. So R&D tax cuts up to 50% are in. You would have expected resilience package by the central government as a cleanup mechanism, but it's already been given as resilience 2 weeks into the crisis. And that's 30% extra liquidity every bank is allowed to inject back into the system in a deeply liquid market. The relief package by Sheikh Hamdan, which is starting today, within 31 days, right? That's $1 billion dirhams for businesses. My sense is that what would have taken maybe 3 months to clean up in this market might actually happen in 30 days. And that's where I would not advise an investor to wait for too long. Because the way investors always work in any downturn is that they work towards the super distress. They want to invest at the real bottom. Same for equity markets, right? But no one knows where the real bottom is, right? So let's say this Fairways Villa example, the 34 million, let's say, has dropped to 26 million, and someone's like, okay, let me wait. In fact, I'll give you my example. I was looking to buy a 6-bedroom in Meadows, okay, which was at 22 million, okay. Now I'm getting offers around 18 million. But I don't know if this is the bottom or there's going to be another bottom, if this is distress or super distress. But it's one unit out of 21 units that were listed. 6 bedrooms of 5, out of the 5, 1 has only gone down. The others have held their price because it's been 1 month, right? So the way this market, I believe, will work is that during crisis, you'll probably get the best deals. Because the moment the crisis is over, the government would have injected so much into the system that developers will pull back. Because developers will know that the cleanup act has already started. We are going to be back onto the market within 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. So I believe the best time is now. Dubai, unlike any other real estate market in the world, operates like a stock market. The future problems are factored in today. So if it was the UK, I would say the bottom will happen after the crisis in about 3 months from the crisis. But in the UAE, it's happening as we speak because measures and metrics are changing as we speak. Recalibration is happening at the highest level as we speak, right? So the new normal is already in. That's why the new deals are happening. That's why the investors are coming back. That's why the deal structuring is happening. It's happening in real time, right? So I'm not a soothsayer. I'm not clairvoyant. I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel that this is the new normal. Deals should happen now. Offers should be given now because there is no bottoming out really. Because, history tells you that the market has been so resilient that this time, even in bottoming out, the market will be very resilient. It might not go as low as we wanted to as investors. So the reality is today, what you're getting today, you get a hold of. Of course, you do deal making across the table, be selective about your purchase, but I would say do it sooner than later, because there might not be a later. Because the later Dubai plugs in, right? So that's my sense.
Okay. So, Charan, last question for you. Now, Imran, has been talking about a particular cleanup act, in the market. Now, I want to ask you another cleanup act. I don't know if it's required or not. I'm just asking you, being a member of the real estate brokerage fraternity, right? So, the cleanup act that I'm talking about, because a lot of people have been complaining there are so many brokers.
Yeah. I'm one of them actually.
Yeah, a lot of them, maybe without a license, and things that reminded people of 2008, when all of a sudden all these guys vanished. Do you expect that to happen? Do you expect that cleanup act to happen?
Yes, is the answer, and it's already starting to happen. And actually, the market needs it. So, one of the things that was probably a bit of a, I would call it collateral damage, or like it was just something that you couldn't control. Dubai, because it was such an exciting market, it was seen everywhere in the world, all over social media. You have real estate brokers making millions of pounds. It just didn't happen in other countries. So naturally, if you were like an estate agent or a real estate agent in another country, you're thinking, I'm booking a flight one way straight to Dubai. I'm going to make millions, right? And for many, that was true. But the problem was that the collateral damage of that was that you had people who potentially didn't really have the skill to be a successful real estate agent. And it is a skill. I've been in this industry for 20 years. So I sold at every single level. I started my career in the 2008 recession, where they were giving 110% interest only, self-certified mortgages. And the only thing you needed to do to get the mortgage was come and sit down on the table, write on a piece of paper that you earn £100,000 a year, and they would give you a mortgage on the basis of that, right? Many of those people lost their homes 3 or 4 years later as people knew what happened in the recession. What I'm getting at is that, like, those times of selling, or selling through COVID, or selling through areas, especially in the UK where the process is slower, you've got to really sit down with the family in the living room, you've got to map out how you're going to sell their home, you've got to see it through for 6 months, you've got to deal with solicitors, you've got to do all this stuff to get it through. It's a harder process than what it is in Dubai, because obviously the process in the UK is so slow, right? You've got to be very, very good at your job to get the sales through. The fast money draw of Dubai brought in such a bulk load of people who thought they could do the job. And while some people have been exceptional at it, other people have came and thought it was a gravy train, effectively. And then what's happened is, where the skill sets haven't matched effectively the expectation of what they can do, there's been people who have potentially had deals land on their lap, they've picked up the phone at the right time and a deal's happened, that type of thing. Those days are going to diminish for a few months or even a couple of years. And what you're going to see are market experts. And that is what real estate is. Real estate is about being a trusted advisor, understanding your market correctly, understanding how you advise clients correctly, how they're going to make money in a certain market, how you're going to get their house sold, all these things that require skill, they require training, they require experience. And if you are just somebody who's flown over because you think you can nick a deal, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. And actually, people now who are getting a little bit more cautious with their money, they need to speak to an expert. And so it's imperative, especially if you're an investor, that you don't just speak to the real estate agent that's handed you a leaflet in the airport or whatever, and you actually find someone who's an expert in your market. So I think it's going to thin out the herd, and that's what I think the market also needs. I would welcome some other almost measurable factors to come into someone becoming a real estate agent. I know there's a real estate broker license that you get, which is fine, but I also think, because it's such an appealing market and there's so much money flying around, I'd be open to there being heavier measures on becoming a real estate agent in the market. I just think that why not? You know, I would comply with it fully, and I think that you know, it stops people jumping ship and going every time there's a dip or a peak or a trough in a market. You know.
Okay, thank you. I think I've been really nice to both of you today, not my usual, style. I've been really, really nice actually. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I'm sure, a lot of people are probably waiting for this kind of inputs, rather than just talking about, hey, you come here, invest here. That I think that narrative is not working anymore, to be honest. People want to know both sides of the story, right? I think which you guys have shared. Thank you very much. So until next time, see you soon.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.